So if you're a reader, writer, GM, world builder, or just interested in this type of stuff...
Oh God! Is that tear gas? No!
Today we'll be talking about nomads, who they are, the empires they build, and why they always fall apart. A nomad is a person that lives without a fixed house, needing to travel either cyclically or consistently to make a living. When you hear that word, you may think of Mongols, Plains natives, airbenders, Bedouins, whatever. But while analyzing how an entire way of life that's broader than culture works, you need to be very general, but also show the specifics with examples. Many patterns for the most part fall true for nomadic groups, but aspects of their lives like where they live, the animals at their disposal, and how they interact with sedentary civilizations create a vast diversity in the peoples that we're going to talk about today, even if they share some common traits. But before that, we should back up to the hunter-gatherers, because they were nomads too. Hunter-gatherers would set up shop, forage an area of plants and small animals, hunt for larger game, and pack up what they can carry to a new campsite, often following herds of game. Usually men would do the hunting and women would do the foraging, although men and women were equally influential in the clan. Fishing was a good stable source of food, so a lot of people would end up flocking to bodies of water, a trend that tends to show up in history and in world building. But once people start unlocking agriculture and animal husbandry, these good lands are usually taken over from the hunter-gatherers. Another type of nomadic people are called the tinkers and traders. The best known worldwide are the Romanis, aka the Gyps. Wait, can I say that?
What?
The G word. Like, it's a slur, but it's the only way American audiences will know who we're talking about.
Huh. Maybe we should just ride over it.
Look, if you're here, you're probably into writing, world building, or D&D. Well, WorldAnvil.com is your one-stop quick-shop builder, baby, with wiki-style articles, easy resource uploading, guides and materials, and a great community. Plus, they're now coming out with an RPG-style campaign manager. And that's what I world build for. So as soon as this video's coming out, I'm making a world and a guild, so come join us over at WorldAnvil.com, baby.
Tinkers and traders move around and do business with sedentary civilizations, often selling custom products, labor, game, and the occasional handy. But when most people think about nomads, they think of these: the horse people of the steppe, the desert tent dwellers, and the reindeer herders. For real, reindeer herders. Reindeer are rideable. Imagine a world dominated by reindeer-riding bowmen. That's badass. Moving on. Pastoral nomadism is where you raise animals and move around to where the grass is. This is hard, because they're living in places with scarce resources, like steppes, tundra, mountains, and deserts. Now, everything depends on which biome you live in and the animals you raise, but we only have real examples of these things, so easiest to just stick with those. Animals that are herded like this have been cows, goats, yaks, llamas, reindeer, horses, camels, sheep, and then some. This dependence on the land and animals often made its way into nomadic religions, although moving around so much may eventually convert you to Islam or Buddhism. Nomadic pastoralists live off and trade the milk, meaties, furs, blood, bones, and whatever else. This means that where the animal food is where they must go. Usually up the mountains or up north in the warm season, and down the valleys or down south in the cold season. And remember, this doesn't mean a pastoral clan is always moving. They'd usually set up shop for a few weeks at a time and then keep going. Granted, people in deserts would have to move more often because it's a desert. Why are you living there in the first place? Get out of here! Shelter for pastoral and hunting nomads would have to be mobile or made from the land itself. Think of Comanche teepees or grass huts, whatever keeps the rain off you, as long as you can leave it there or haul it to your next campsite. But all this movement can get dicey, especially when your migration routes, which you've learned from childhood and practiced for years and following generations of your ancestors, happens to cross an international border. Yay! What happens then? Well, nomadic tribes historically are some of the hardest to control politically, on account of their lack of settlement and many aspects of their culture. Nomadic peoples are often very decentralized, where the most immediate power for each person is in the clan. A group big enough to defend itself, but small enough to feed itself. Maybe 25, 50 people. These groups are heavily family-oriented and traditional, since living in these harsh environments requires cooperation and the passing down of survival techniques, which is something that family values and tradition are pretty good for. This also means strict social and economic hierarchies, collective property of what little they own, because they gotta carry it all, more gender equality because pastoral work isn't as physically intensive as agriculture is, so you don't need to specialize who does what as much. Clans would also frequently come into contact with other clans, or better yet, other people groups, because they moved around a lot. Even in a highly traditional society, though, cultural diffusion is inevitable, and nomadic groups would pick up things from all sorts of powers. But then again, from an outside power's perspective, having groups of thousands or even millions of hardy, traditionalist foreigners moving in and out of your personal space as a ruler probably got old. Just ask Sumeria in China, who would have to fight them off when the nomads got a little too organized. But most of the time, nomadic peoples were highly decentralized, with clans rising and falling due to varying amounts of competence in leaders, infighting and rivalries among chiefs, and generations of grudges and revenges to be had by all. The best example of this is in the Mongol tribes before the rise of Genghis Khan. Check out Extra Credits' video on it. But on the flip side, pastoral nomads also tend to deal a lot with trade and the spread of ideas. They move around a lot, and pick up ideas and technology to spread it to where they go next. Nomadic groups would often become merchants or protect and guide merchants through their territory. That being said, they'd often have to defend them from fellow pastoral tribes sweeping in, killing some dudes, and taking all their stuff. Because that tended to happen in a lot of nomadic life. Which begs the question, where did they get their weapons? Well, bows were usually made using wood or animal products. The Mongols glued horn, wood, and muscly tissues together using fish bladders, which failed in humidity, which became a problem in India. Since nomads would settle for weeks at a time, they could build furnaces and kilns to make stuff. And iron is pretty common, so you're good. They'd even use rocks as hammers and anvils, which, makes sense. Weapons and war were often a part of life for pastoral groups. Many nomadic groups in Arabia didn't even see raiding settlements as a moral issue. It was kind of just like, yeah, and that's not to say that nomadic raids and war weren't hugely destructive, because they were. If I had a nickel for every time a nomadic warlord was nicknamed the Scourge of God, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot. But it's weird that it happened twice. What nomadic war consisted of varied depending on the lifestyles of those involved. The most notable warrior nomads being those from the Eurasian steppe, easily conquered because they were good at combat, specifically riding horses and shooting bows. Under a competent leadership that could unite the steppe peoples into a confederacy or khanates or something, nomadic tribes could come to conquer and dominate large swaths of area. But these conquests and migrations led to widespread displacements, like when the Huns pushed the Germanic peoples into Roman territory. The Mongols will have to be talked about next time. I'm sorry. This video was long as it is, and oh my god, this time of year. So, I had to split the video in 2 parts. The next part will be a little bit shorter, and it will cover the Mongols in depth and touch on a bunch of other nomadic groups, and include a lot of valuable information and inspiration. It'll be out pretty soon, I believe. Hell yeah.